Welcome to Clare Island, Chapter 24. I was home before I knew it. For once, I didn't end up behind any tractors crawling along like funeral procession. The sun sank into the horizon, and the evening's calm descended like an amen at the end of a prayer. So be it. I felt free. My shoulders lifted now that I'd made the decision that I'd done as much as I could for Bridget. Perhaps I'd get some peripheral information about the strange painting in Matthew's apartment, but nothing that would shed additional light regarding what really happened to him. At least I'd be able to report that he shared his artistic talents freely and that they were appreciated and respected by someone with credentials like Richard O'Malley. I also reminded myself that tomorrow would bring another day, and with it the promise of something new. I believe that every wall has a door. I began to think about my weekend with Peter, and I realized I was looking forward to spending more time with him. I also thought that there was still a chance I might learn something more about my mother. I took my phone out and dialed Bridget's number. It went to her voicemail almost immediately. Bridget, this is Star O'Brien. I wanted to give you a status report, but I guess I've missed you. If you can, call me early tomorrow morning. Otherwise, I'll be on Clare Island for the weekend. Moments later, I connected with Philly. Sorry I haven't gotten back to you, I said. But with Matthew Sumner, the 5-hour time difference, and lack of reliable electronic gadgetry at my fingertips, I'm a bit lost. Did you get the picture I emailed? Yep. I heard a keyboard clattering in the background. I've printed the picture you scanned and sent it along with your description to an art expert here in Ridgewood. It may be a day or two before he responds. There's an art show in town this weekend. Okay, call me with the results. I don't know when I'll be in the internet cafe to check emails again, so leave a message on my phone. It was midday Thursday in New Jersey, so maybe I'd hear something later tonight. Boss? You didn't call me back about the message I left you. I apologize for that, Billy. Being 3,000 miles away, I might as well be 30,000. What's going on? You're not going to believe this, but our search software picked up an inquiry about a Maggie O'Malley. She was born around 1952 and grew up in Ackle. Who made the inquiry? She's near Castle Bar, a village named Cong in County Mayo. Her name is Evelyn Cosgrove. Philly then recited the phone number. After that, I heard her say, "Are you there?" just before I terminated the call. Minutes passed, water dripped from the kitchen faucet, a tractor rolled up the road. Everything seemed normal and surreal to me. Was it coincidental that someone was looking for a woman with the same name as my mother? At least this Evelyn person didn't share the O'Malley surname. I knew I'd have to talk to her to determine, at the very least, if we were looking for the same Maggie. Lots of unanswered questions. I lifted the phone from its cradle and dialed. Then a recorded voice came on the line. You've reached Evelyn Cosgrove. I'm out of the office on holidays, returning on September 10. I ended the call and counted the days between now and the 10th. It was 25, or a lifetime. I wondered which it would be. When I heard the knock on the back door, I fully expected to see Aunt Georgina standing out there. When she doesn't hear from me for a day, she shows up at the cottage unannounced. But it wasn't her. I knew you'd return eventually, Lorcan said as he marched into the kitchen. What are you doing here? My voice rasped in my throat as the day's annoyances and disappointments flooded into me. To emphasize this, I pointedly stared at my watch. It's after 9:30. Do you normally pay visits so late? I think it's about time we talked about our relationship, he went on, ignoring my question. From the moment we met, I've sensed that you didn't trust me. Don't deny it. I want an explanation. You owe it to me and to Dylan. He would have wanted us to be friends. Lorcan then walked into the living room and plunked himself into one of the armchairs. Friends? Is that really what Dylan would have wanted? I didn't think so. Suddenly, all my feelings of grief about Dylan welled inside of me and burst out in the general direction of my latest guest. I strode over to the other chair and sat down, grasping its arms for support. Dylan rarely talked about you other than to say you're trouble. Tell me how that adds up to friendship. Lorcan's laughter roared through the college. Trouble? Is that what he called me? Has that been the problem all along? He paused, looked at my face, stopped chuckling, and continued. I can see I need to explain. Frustrated, tired, and feeling more fragile than ever, I could only nod. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. Believe me when I tell you, there was nothing in it. Dylan and I really were friends. Then why didn't he talk about you? Lorcan lifted his weight against the back of the chair, as if bracing himself. We had a falling out a few years ago. He paused, repositioned his body, and took a deep breath. Over you. Over me? I wanted to laugh out loud. Now I'd heard it all. You didn't even know me, Lorcan. No, I didn't. But Dylan was here on one of his flying visits, and he told me he'd met someone he loved, whose name was Star O'Brien. Lorcan clasped his hands in front of him, leaned further over the edge of the cushion, and began quoting Dylan. Lorcan, I've fallen hard. She's had a bit of bother in her life, making her fiercely independent. She's lost everyone she's loved, but she's lost too, trying to find her mother. I don't know if she'll have me, but I'm going to try like hell, at whatever cost. Lost? Could Dylan really have said that? Is that what he thought? But why didn't he tell me about this place? Or about you or Aunt Georgina? I didn't think I could bear to hear Lorcan's answer, but at the same time, I had to know. Lorcan sighed. Her name was Caitlin May. I stared at Lorcan's fingers, watching them pale to a bloodless pallor, as he girded his hands against the arms of the chair. I don't understand. Who's Caitlin May? Was, Star. She's dead. She and Dylan lived together for several years. They met when he was on one of his business trips and he'd stopped here for a few days. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I focused on Lorcan's white knuckles and wondered if I could hold on to my sanity like that. Dylan had been my rock, and our love was the foundation of my life. My soul quaked as the meaning behind Lorcan's revelations rolled over me. 10 years his junior and a dedicated botanical researcher, she didn't mind his frequent business trips. Lorcan stopped here, shook his head, and focused his gaze at the stone-cold fireplace grate before continuing. It happened quickly. She contracted a virus during an experiment and was dead within hours. Lorcan stood up and began pacing around the room. Dylan was devastated, swore he'd never love anyone again. And then he met you. He struggled with telling you about Caitlin. We discussed it, and I urged him to tell you about his past, but he wanted a clean break. So he decided to keep the Irish part of his life a secret. Lorcan threw himself back into the chair and gazed into my eyes. He didn't want to expose you to his pain or jeopardize his relationship with you. When I didn't respond, Lorcan continued. He also didn't want you to waste your time looking for your mother. At this, Lorcan shrugged and sighed. I don't know, Star. I don't know. Don't stop. I want to hear it all. Sure, okay. He was worried about your obsession with finding your mother. He believed that you had been abandoned, and he wanted to spare you the heartbreak of learning the truth. I think he wanted to make sure your relationship was based on love for each other without any attachments. I guess he thought he'd have more time to tell you about here. Lorcan sighed again, pushing himself forward on the chair, and reached over to take one of my hands. But I refused his gesture, moving my own hands into my lap, where I folded them together to give myself support. How could Dylan have been so misguided, I wondered, and so arrogant that he thought he knew what was best for me? Star, I didn't agree with him and I told him so. That disagreement became so heated that it ended our friendship, and I never heard from him again. Lorcan's words paralyzed me as if I'd been tasered. He stood up, lowered his head, and said, I'm sorry, Star. Sometimes it's the people we love the most who bring us the greatest pain. I only wish to God I could turn back the clock and put him in this room with us now. I didn't want it to turn out like this, for any of us. I nodded and watched him leave. Then I sat there for a long while. The clock ticked, the dog barked, and a lone car rumbled down the road. Finally, I rose, turned out the lights, and went to bed.